Hi, my name is Sun Seng and I am the CEO of Teach from Malaysia, and I'm an alumni from the first cohort, the 2012 cohort.
My name is Kamarizwan Jalaluddin. I'm part of Teach from Malaysia Fellowship Cohort 2012. I'm currently working in one of the audit firms, also doing training and also talent development.
Hi, my name is Swetli. I was in the 2012 cohort. I'm now an education consultant with the World Bank, part-time, but I'm also a mother full-time.
I'm Karthik. I'm a 2012 alumni. I'm currently a data and management lead at Google.
I think that the reality of the world is that it's so unpredictable, right? And there are so many jobs. The future is more and more so ours to create than it is a plan that we have to follow based on, what our parents or what society says it should be. When it came to this personal, real life experience of my brother having to go through the public school system, the fact that it was money that played the factor in making that difference made it feel like an injustice to me. I was upset about it, and I felt like I needed to do something to contribute to improving the quality of education in Malaysia. I was working in a job, and I was constantly asking myself questions of what the meaning behind my work was. Being able to do something for Malaysia, the country that I call home, right, and the country that I love, being able to do something that seemed to directly make the kind of impact or difference that I wanted to, that I cared about, were like stars aligning in a sense for me. So that's why I joined.
So I had two offers. One was from an automotive industry company. Another one was with Teach from Malaysia. And I remember I asked my dad, which one should I go to? And I remember he told me that if you were to go to the automotive industry, you just be another engineer out of the thousands that are out there. But I like cars, so it's something that I am passionate in also lah. But if you are part of this TFM, something new, you'll be a part of a pioneer group. But then these are the skills that's very relevant as an alumni. What do corporate or actually a job really requires? It requires you to problem solve. There's a lot of problems that you need to kind of face every time. It requires you to be creative. It requires you to be a good communicator as well. All these skills you learn as a teacher.
So I came across an interview on BFM radio by someone who was really intelligent, very smart, was giving the interview, known as Swetli. So I was listening to the interview on BFM and I was like, wow, this is really cool, and I think it looks very noble in its cause, but also something that gives you power to the problem being where can we have the solution for. So I like the idea that we can be part of the solution, right? When I looked at the program, there's one particular brand that actually stood out to me, right? Actually, there was two brands. So one was Khazanah. I looked at Khazanah as one of the partners, and I was like, wow, that's credible. And then the other partner that was on the logo was Google. So when I went back home and I told my mom I'm going to consider this program, and at that point I was in market research, I was in a corporate, and I was going to leave that to explore this. And the first thing I told my mom is that, the pathway after this is going to be like, I'm going to join Google. So don't worry about me, I'm just going to do this for 2 years. So for me, I'm going to try and solve the problem and then take whatever learnings that I can get as leadership development and then try and apply it in the future career, right? So that was what I actually articulated. But through it, I think I had a lot of moments of opportunity in which just allowed me to truly understand one thing about jobs in general, is that whatever you want, you can get it, and you're just collecting like moments of experiences or learning to go into that particular role, right? So I was a teacher for 2 years teaching mathematics, and then was in the partnership development for TFM for 2 years, and that got me to work even closer with a lot of partners. So I worked directly with people like Khazanah and Google, and I went into Google office in the capacity as a partnership development to go and fundraise from Google, and I was like in their office, and I was like, wow, this office is really cool. I wish one day I would be able to. But at that point, it's like I need to make sense, right? Like what skills or industry I'm coming from to be able to transfer. And having gone through that 2 years and having seen my students go through and break barriers of or ceilings that previously was not possible, gave me that, if it's possible, I'll just give it a shot, right? So that's where, eventually I got to Google, but along the way, there was a couple of experience that I did collect. But for me, it was a classroom experience that actually taught me that you can bring it down to the core and build something that lets everyone thrive. And actually, then pause. Sometimes we do have difficult conversation. I actually tell my story of my classroom to all this senior level executive to say hey, actually we should give a benefit of doubt, because here's my story of what I saw in the classroom of this one girl who actually had the transformation of failing all her life and actually getting an A, and then it kind of resets them and say, hey, then it kind of throws them off balance because they don't expect that story, but then they recalibrate and say, hey, okay, then let's give this a shot and let's try.
So I grew up in Subang. Subang is a bubble. So I really felt that I didn't know enough about the country. I was very patriotic. That's a big thing that I cared a lot about when I was in the US. I really cared a lot about sort of causes back in Malaysia. Maybe because when you're further away, then you miss home, and then you're like, oh, what can I do for my country? It also changed my whole career trajectory, because now I'm still in education policy. I'm social education policy, and my classroom experience has mattered so much in all the work that I do. Currently in the World Bank. Before that, I was working with the Ministry of Education. So the fact that I was actually a classroom teacher before, and not just any classroom teacher, a teacher in a school that needs a lot of support, so I can come with that experience. So not elite school or anything, but school that really needs help. So I think that experience has so much weightage. So if you ever thought of going to policy or international government or just any international organization, doing TFM is very important. The problem of inequity is beyond, what's in school in education. It's also social issues. It's also so many health issues and so many other things as well outside the system. So definitely, it's not just the responsibility of a teacher alone to educate a person or a student. So I think there's so many areas that you can support, right, in terms of understanding this issue and also untangling the knot. So if you're interested in criminal justice, for example, there's so many areas within that to work with youth as well. There's so many areas, whatever interest areas. If you're interested in art, for example, there's so many things within that you can do to influence youth and to encourage them to participate and so on.
I say for a student, right, learning is not just about being in the classroom. So if you think about it, what would enable a child to learn? So in order for this one child to be able to be in the classroom, what does she or he need to have? I think the mindset can be about enabling their learning. So whatever aspect that you have capacity to support, rather than just directly going into the classroom, you just imagine how can I enable the teacher to teach, and how can I enable the student to learn, and then just putting the pieces together, because what Sweat mentioned, it's a wicked problem. It's about poverty, it's about nutrition. So if you have interest in terms of tackling poverty, helping the family itself, I remember there's the initiative that Sweat did was to make sure that every house has books. There's a study about the correlation between actually households that have books and the importance of the family putting on education. Is that right?
Yeah, not bad. You remember, yeah.
I mean, we just recently had this conversation around what do we think of for our daughter? How would we make a decision of school? So I bucket it into two. One is the teacher in the classroom, and the other one is the problem of ending education inequity. I think the whole ending education inequity is the one that is it's a difficult problem, it's a wicked problem. But when it comes to a classroom and a student who's already in the classroom, I feel the most powerful person in the classroom is the teacher, right? If the teacher is a really good teacher, that makes a lot of difference for the students who are entering the classroom. And if we can just multiply whatever the teacher is doing, whether it's the resources that they're getting in, or stickers and all the power to the teacher, right? Because we trust that teacher is going to know what the needs of the students are in the classroom. That's the most clearest sense of what each individual student need. As long as we can put the lowest common denominator there is a really great teacher. So that's one. But then ending education inequity, that's a wicked problem. It's currently an unsolvable problem. So there, I feel you got to tackle so many different elements. So then you got to find that role of what their unique contribution can be. And then we'll put that bet on the teacher, not on the school system, not on the curriculum, not on how much it costs, but actually the classroom teacher.
When you're a fellow, you have so much sort of flexibility and freedom compared to a lot of other teachers who have families and so on. So I had a lot of extra classes at my house for kids who can't read and write. And I remember just like going into their kampong to fetch them to come to my house, because no way they can come to my house at night, right? No light at all, and just seeing his face when he saw me coming in my car, just to come to my house to read Peter and Jane, you know. But that moment he lit up because his teacher came to fetch him from his kampong that is so far away. That was so memorable to me, lah. The fact that all these kids just want the chance to learn. And nobody really gave them that chance because it's so difficult to reach out to every single child.
You're going to have a lot of
yeah.
these moments that's going to really shape you or be turning points or give you perspective on life. So there's this competition, it's a science competition, as Carnival Science and Technology. So we did join the competition within the district level, and these 3 students, smart students, they managed to win in the first place. So actually we just won our school level, now we have to go district level. Actually, when they arrived at the school, the students didn't want to come out from the car. And I said, why? Because their clothing were not new. They were wearing tattered shoes. And when they saw the kids in those schools, all of them wore like the competition specific clothes, you know, like all custom for the competition. My students were wearing PJ clothes lah, all loose already, like worn down, and they were shy. They wouldn't come out of the car. So I motivated them, they went out, they competed, they did the device and everything, presented, and actually won. Yeah, they won district level. You remember you asked me how I was doing. I actually was going through a hard time. Nobody cared about how my day was, but you just took time to just ask. For you, it's normal lah, but to that person, it means a lot. So you're gonna have those moments, you're gonna experience that in your fellowship, or even in life.
The one thing that grounds me, right, is being able to actually work with like this, 16-year-olds and 17-year-old, and going through that, like, 100% to the anxiety before walking into the classroom, seeing the 16-year-old that has failed many years, took an initiative to believe what I said to her, which at that point I used to say that it was a white lie. It's not the white lie that resonated, but it's the fact that an authoritative figure was saying something and she took it for real, right? This is something that would be possible for me to kind of emulate. They don't remember what you do or teach, but they remember how you made them feel, right? So I think that is the point in which there was that feeling that was probably ignited, that she had a sudden sense of like, maybe I can do it too, right? And that translated into her mobilizing her group of friends, convincing them to come for the extra classes and really training to want to learn. So that's like defying gravity moment for me, where how can you get A for something? That means you can actually go through exam and answer, you understand the question, you just don't know how to, I guess, like figure out the rest of the subject, right? If that is possible, then absolutely she could have just gotten A throughout all of the subjects if she had the right intent or the guidance for it.
You really can't think about an equitable solution or equitable policies for education if you don't understand what the most challenging situations on the ground look like. Teach for Malaysia's philosophy about leadership is that everyone can develop their leadership, right? We don't believe in this idea that some people are like born to be leaders and some people aren't born to be leaders, but that leadership is a competency and it's character that can be developed, right? But we choose the context of the classroom because we believe that if we want leaders who are going to transform the education system, they need to understand what it's like in the most complex and challenging environment that there is. The classroom is kind of a natural lab for leadership, right? Influencing people, right? And influencing people who may not necessarily even want to be there. I think really the kind of leader that we need to see to lead, the kind of future that we want for Malaysia, but for us as a global society, is a leader who understands humanity. And I think that it is in the classroom, or the classroom context is just such a powerful place where you begin to understand what life is like for someone, the ability to try to understand it and take their perspective, and then to bring them all together as a group to achieve something for themselves is such a powerful laboratory for leadership development. just because you may not be there full time after the 2 years doesn't mean that there isn't a way to be able to contribute back to that. When fellows leave the school after those 2 years, we can place fellows back in those same schools to ensure that new fellows come in to build on the work that fellows had done existingly. That partnership enables the host teacher as well to gain new ideas, different types of practices. And so supporting a host teacher can be a really, really powerful way to ensure that the kind of learning that these students deserve sticks even beyond this 2 years of fellowship.
It's not so much about like the continuity post the 2 year necessarily, but it's that moments of like impact that you have that would change their behavior for a lifetime, right? You do everything it takes to give them the evidence that they can succeed, right? So if you have them in 2 years, you don't want to just like sell them a dream. You sell them a dream, show them the reality, and then get them to own the reality. You being there is an opportunity for you to be that new stimulant that brings novelty, that actually sticks much more. You learn when something is new, something is exciting, and that is the opportunity that I feel like a teaching partner can lead with, because you're there at a very finite time period. So, after the 2 years, if you feel like you found an exciting problem that you think you can solve for, whatever that is, you would feel like you have the power and agency to kind of like, do something about it. And I feel like classroom gives you that no other place organically creates.
In fact, it's a good thing that, you can also leave and try different things, because then you get to understand the problem a bit more. And that's the beauty of TFM, that sold me to TFM, because you're not stuck into one role. And the beauty is everybody plays different roles. You understand the problem, and then you take whatever motivation and interest that you have, and you make that understanding deeper in different areas. That's the beauty of it lah. So I think own that beauty and leverage on that beauty of what the opportunity provides to you.
On the ground, and you can see the reality of the different challenges that each individual student are going through, especially in the schools that we go through. But I knew some of my friends who were able to go into really good corporate companies, really good brands, and they were able to sell their experience of Teach for Malaysia. So I know there's value there. So imagine coming out of the fellowship, now your bag of tools, your bag of tricks is full. Like you have a lot of stuff there in there already that you have. Being in the classroom, going through grit. I think that grit that you get throughout the fellowship, or at least in this particular experience, is part of your internal change that you have. The internal discipline that you have. And I learned so much from the fellowship in terms of myself and who I am. And instead of me teaching the kids actually taught me a lot about who I am. They taught me about emotional intelligence, how to self-manage, how to self-regulate, how to social awareness, how to understand people and their behaviors, and not just assume their behaviors. I learned a lot about suspending judgment. When you as a teacher give them attention that they rarely get, just an extra bit of attention, it goes a long way for them, because it shows that they have a voice, it shows that they matter and they're relevant, especially when it comes from a teacher.